Hello and welcome to WWJPS. This is your host, Vanessa Pinto. I have been sick all week and I am still a little sick, but I needed to get on because it's the 4th of July and we need to discuss that. You will notice by the little on my laptop there, I left that there specifically because of the Liberty Bell. But today what I want to do is I want to have an in-depth discussion about what is actually happening in America. After 250 years, and all of us being alive at this time in the planet, I want to show you what I see when I see America. And that's what we're going to do today.
Pay attention to a historical pattern that almost nobody's talking about. Because every major empire in history, right before things start falling apart, does the same thing. They become something. Not stronger, not freer, not more democratic. Meaner, more paranoid. More obsessed with controlling people.
The flock cameras, the way that we are monitored in a way that Americans have never been monitored before. And people can say whatever the fuck they want in the Reddit comments about surveillance. This has never happened before, nor did we want it to happen. And what's amazing is there are the Americans that see this that are terrified. And then there are the ones that are just willingly giving it all up and not even seeing the danger. And before there was retirement, I watched people do it. I watched members of my own family do it. But now, so what will happen to the millennials?
Going to work until they die, and Gen Z is going to have to work even longer, according to Yahoo Finance, saying that millennials and Gen Z are going to have to save $3 million in order to retire comfortably by age 65.
We did everything right. We worked hard, we paid our bills, we raised our children the right way. So can somebody explain why in my 50s, my husband and I, we're living paycheck to paycheck? Retirement?
So now what's interesting, not to age myself, but I am going to turn 50 in 2 years. I actually started worrying about retirement at 40 because I realized I had not been worried about retirement, and not because of any other reason than I had bills to pay. And what's interesting is as you will go through this video and see the two Americas, because that's really what the difference is. Right now, there are specifically two Americas. There are the everyday people, like me, like you. And I mean people even that are making up into the millions, okay? People that, for the most part, think that they're comfortable, think that they're going to be okay. They have a retirement. But those people are getting priced out because it is the billionaires or it is us. There's no in between anymore. And I mean, there is no in between. Now, while the rest of us are worried about retirement, are worried about our kids, are worried about losing houses, are worried about putting food on the table, are worried about the fact that gas is $10 a gallon in some places, then there are the billionaires.
The Seasteading Institute. The Seasteading Institute was started by Patry Friedman, the grandson of Milton Friedman, the famous economist who gave politicians the academic backing to rip off the global working class. The goal of TSI was to build self-sustaining societies at sea, ruled by new governments on newly constructed land.
Now, what are we noticing about this? This isn't just a theory. What's happening in Albania? What's happening to Little St. Jeff's? What's happening to all these strange little places that are being bought up by the wealthy and no one's really talking about it?
This was particularly appealing to libertarians who wanted to escape the constraints of modern governance.
The question of whether seasteading is desirable or possible, in my mind, is not even relevant. It is absolutely necessary.
Peter Thiel provided the seed money for this project and set up TSI with some office space in a conference room in the Palantir office. He also hooked Friedman up with one of the co-founders, Joe Lonsdale.
You know, we're the guys who create institutions that are changing the world, and we've changed a lot of industries so far here in Silicon Valley, but we haven't been able to change the government. That's a pretty hard one.
How many people want to punch that guy in the face? I mean, I know I do. So first, I was like, okay, so they're buying all the houses so they can rent it back to us for far more expensive, right? And that made sense. But no, it's more nefarious than that. They're actually going to build communities where they decide who is in there legally, because they can vote it in. And they can create these new little towns based on the corruption. And California, get ready. You can say whatever you want about Gavin Newsom, but that man leaves in November and shit's gonna go down in this state.
Changing the government is exactly what Thiel wanted. I spoke with one of the people who's been following the rise of this movement better than anyone else. Gil Duran, journalist and author of The Nerd Reich, to get a better understanding of the philosophy behind all of this.
There's a long history of people seeking to escape democratic societies or else to bring back monarchy or authoritarianism. In 1997, there was a...
So here it is. So bottom line, just to nip it all in the bud so that we can all just stop talking about it. This is what they want, and they've done it. They haven't done it explicitly, but who runs our government? Peter Thiel, Alex Karp, Elon Musk, Sam Altman, Mark Zuckerberg, and other of those Neanderthals, because none of them actually did anything. They're just rich. None of them, Larry Ellison, Jeff Bezos, none of them invented anything. They were corrupt. They were handed something by intelligence agencies. They are now up so high in the sky with their own money that they just want to get rid of the rest of us. They want to only fill in the pieces of people that they feel will do something to the earth. And then at this point, they're going to replace everyone with robots. Like, what? Where are we? Where are we?
That came out called The Sovereign Individual. It argued that in the 21st century, two technologies would result basically in the overthrow of democracy and the demise of nations like the United States. Cybercurrency, which we would call crypto today, and
Americans keep asking, when is this going to give? When is this going to give? When is this going to give? And I just keep thinking to myself, why has no one realized that's the point? There is no give. They want to break us to get us where they want us. There will be no relief to any of this. It will just get worse.
And the other one was advanced automation that would create a world without jobs, and that wealthy individuals who are savvy investors could profit from this coming doom and prepare for it by making the right investments. This book had a major impact on Peter Thiel.
Is that not basically describing exactly what's happening? And that was when Peter Thiel got hard for the first time without having to harm something and decided that this is what, he was going to do.
Best with enemies inside their own borders. And almost every single time, the people who lose rights first are the minorities. Political descendants, religious minorities. The people easiest to scapegoat when the empire starts panicking. Rome did it.
Yeah, they are panicking. So now, let's talk about the panic. So Vanessa, where is all this surveillance going? Well, it's going to digital ID, folks. That's exactly where this is going. That's what all of this is about. It is about taking away the dollar, right? They're going to introduce digital currency and then slap Mark of the Beast on us and pretty much control us through the ether.
It's becoming the first testing ground for plans to create a digital ID system for Americans. This ties in with changes being made to the state's My Alaska digital identity system, which could potentially be interwoven with artificial intelligence and payment functions.
Now, that is exactly, without too much description, what Catherine Austin has been warning all of us. So let's go back to Catherine for a moment. Now remember, it is the bankers that are in charge, regardless of what we want to say. It's the central bankers. And if you want to take that a little further, do a little history lookup. Countries like Venezuela, Iran, Cuba, they're not part of the central banks. Notice we're in conflict with them. Do you think it's because of what they tell us? Probably not.
We think about the entire world telling us about where the future of our currency is going to go and what the plans are for the future. So let's listen to this.
Our analysis on CBDC, in particular for the use of general use, we tend to establish the equivalence with cash. And there is a huge difference there. For example, in cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today.
So what's funny is they're going to spin this as criminality, right? And I think, it's worked for a long time. Right now, in the United States, if I were to go to my bank and pull out $11,000 over 10, I would have to explain it. I would have to explain why I'm pulling out that amount of money. I fill out a little form. When you deposit more than $10,000 into your bank account cash. You need to account for it. And that is because the government is saying, this is cash, it's not a check. We just want to make sure you're not laundering money, right? That's always how it is spun. But is it for that, or is it for control? Because think about it. When you pay with cash, nobody knows where you are. That's the first thing criminals do when they know they're being tracked. They get rid of all cards and everything's done with cash because you can still, cruise around and pay for things. They want to get rid of cash. They want to make sure that there is no way that we ever move on this planet without them knowing, and we don't buy things without them knowing, we don't eat things without them knowing, we don't have anything without them knowing.
A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also we will have the technology to enforce that. Those two issues are extreme.
Palantir, we will have the way to enforce that. Catherine Austin Fitts, she worked in the first Bush administration in the HUD, and she essentially, this is her coming to Jesus moment. And that's the other thing that people need to look at for our 250-year anniversary. We've had a hell of a lot of not necessarily whistleblowers, but people who are speaking about things they've never spoken about before. Catherine Austin Fitts, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, some of the others that are all of a sudden ex-CIA, very vocal about what this country has been doing and their part in it and trying to warn us, and that should fucking terrify you. Because these are the people that set it up and they can't live with it anymore, which means it's coming.
The top 63 members of, or the top 63 central banks in the world are members. And what he is describing is their push for programmable money. He called it central bank digital currencies, but it could be stable coins that are hooked up to a social credit system. There are many different ways of doing programmable money. Here's what he told you. He told you the money that you have is not your money, it's their money. So he said it's an expression of central bank liability. And
that's the other thing they're getting us used to, is the fact that anything that is ours is not really ours, right? They don't want us owning anything. Even now with cars, I didn't realize that, but there is a subscription service now with cars. So when you buy a vehicle, and let's say you pay cash all out, right? You still have to pay to use your radio. You have to pay a monthly fee to use certain options, even though they were supposed to be included. So these people want to drain us. They want to drain us and drain us and drain us. And they're doing it.
What he said, and of course this is the beauty of AI and software and telecommunications and the different systems we're putting into place. What he said is, we can make the rules centrally. The central bankers can make the rules and we can enforce them using the technology. Now what that means is we've all lived in a world where the bankers ran monetary policy, but our legislative representatives and our executive branch ran fiscal policy. What he's saying is we can now run fiscal policy.
Well, that's the thing. They've been running fiscal policy. Now they're just doing it openly. That's what's happening now. They're openly coming in, they're openly taking over, and they're openly saying, hey, by the way, you have no governments. We've run this the whole time. So we're going to make one world order. We're going to make one digital currency and make everyone safe, and to make sure that immigration is not overrun by criminals. I mean, my God, it is the fucking Donald Trump playbook being played out internationally.
See through your money. And that means we can do taxation without representation.
So let's see an example of how this is playing out, because the thing is, this is two-pronged. It's two-pronged, right? They're selling the money aspect, but the surveillance aspect is another part of it, right? So when he says we will enforce it, what does he mean? Well, what he means is, based on your behavior, we're going to limit it. So let's say that they say, Vanessa, we don't want you leaving Berkeley today. You can go anywhere in Berkeley, but you can't leave Berkeley. And if I step outside the county, they can arrest me, they can take me. Or if digital ID was on, they could make sure that I could spend absolutely no money and basically not leave Berkeley. Huh? That's terrifying. Now, right now, UK is the experiment. So let's take a look across the pond, all right? Right now, they're making digital ID mandatory, and they're also saying that if you do not have it, you cannot work. They're already starting to restrict it.
Be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. Our immigration system does need to be fair if we want to maintain that binding contract that our politics is built on. And that is why today I am announcing this government will make a new free of charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament.
Now, I would like for us to listen to Tucker Carlson about what's actually happening in the UK, because the digital ID is one part of it. I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but right now in the UK, criticizing Israel online or making certain posts, you got to knock at your door and you get arrested. It's happening. So then who's to say you tie that to, do you see where I'm going with it? See where I'm going with it?
Do you think were arrested in the United Kingdom for speech violations, arrested by the police, handcuffed and brought to jail in 2023? What's your guess? Is it more than 12,000? Because that's the answer. More than 12,000. Wow, that seems like a lot. Is that a lot? Well, let's compare it to the number, the widely agreed upon number from the most totalitarian country in the world. A country so lacking in basic freedom, a country run by a madman, a country that's so evil we're literally at war with that country right now, just on principle. And that country, of course, is Russia under Vladimir Putin. How many were arrested in Russia? A country with twice the population of the UK. Oh, we happen to have the number. 3,319. So that.
Now, say what you want about Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. I bring them up for a very specific reason. These people are not just coming around in order to face a new audience. They don't have to do that. They have their base. But we have an episode of Candace Owens and Hunter Biden, apologizing to one another, discussing what's happening in the world. Tucker Carlson is avidly challenging the president. And here's the thing, it's because Charlie Kirk was murdered and he was one of them. I found out Charlie Kirk was actually a true believer. No wonder he was such a just maddening piece of shit with his propaganda. But they watched one of their own get murdered. They watched their government cover it up, and they're seeing them come for them. So understand that is really why Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens are a bit mouthy. They are concerned. Now let's hear from this gentleman who has lived in both China and the UK.
Right now, they're telling you it's to stop illegal migration, to stop illegals from working, and to be able to provide easier access to services. But these are all manufactured issues, and they're being used as excuses to convince you that digital ID is the solution.
For too many years, it's been too easy for people to come here, slip into the shadow economy, and remain here illegally.
Cash. That's the shadow economy. Cash. Right? So, like he's saying, they're building a wonderful story. Is it true? Absolutely not.
We do need to know who is in our country. This government will make a new free of charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work.
But it doesn't make any sense. We already have passports, national insurance numbers, and right to work checks when you look for a job, when you apply for a job.
Well, it's like right now, Donald Trump trying to make voting, only for Americans. We already have this vote. Why are we doing this? There's no reason for doing this, but we're creating a lot of really, really good fairy tales in order to do it.
Illegal migrants can still find work because their employers are not asking for ID. They know it's illegal. So by introducing further measures, it only applies to ordinary people. And I think the Prime Minister and the people involved in this project, they know that people are not buying it, because now they are shifting their tone. They're making it sound like it's for you, so you can have easier access to public services.
Not least because it means that...
Yeah, because they always want to make it easier for public services. By the way, Keir Starmer's in a world of shit. I believe he resigned. And he's the one that appointed Mandelson. He's also part of the Bilderberg group. He is an interesting scum.
And right now, The United States is doing it. So let's start with Rome, because people love romanticizing Rome, right? The architecture, the soldier, the aesthetics, the little TikTok edits with the dramatic music, you know? But Rome got paranoid toward the end. In the late 200s and early 300s, the empire became deeply paranoid about the internal enemies. One of the groups they targeted heavily? Christians. Emperor Diocletian launched what historians now call the Great Persecution. Churches destroyed, sacred texts burned, Christians stripped of legal protection.
The eerie sense that the deck is stacked against you by someone or something hovering in the corner of your eye. You're not alone. According to a recent Gallup poll, 7 out of 10 Americans oppose the construction of data centers in their backyard to power AI. But despite this incredible statistic, opposing ChatGPT and sprawling server farms could be the reason you show up on a federal watch list, according to documents I obtained and published with Wired. This is America's new surveillance regime. With the help of insider voices, we'll paint a picture of the deep state embarking on a vast new conspiracy. This time, the government's fight isn't with foreign adversaries like Iran, China, or Russia. It's here on American soil, and its alleged enemies are everyday Americans working everyday American jobs. The goal isn't protecting national security, but the profits and feelings of corporate America.
They're telling the Justice Department, the FBI, the DEA, the Secret Service, all these agencies, hey guys, we have to focus on this.
The price of gas, food, childcare, everything is going up. And to see something that characterizes class-based or economic grievances as an indicator of terrorism or a dangerous belief is really shocking.
And very, very scary. Going back to that other part of America, the billionaires, they're part of that surveillance crew. That's why they're so readily making everyone an enemy and watching everything. They even gave us a manifesto.
Our manifesto, which has been described as the ramblings of a supervillain. People who don't know what Palantir is, it's a U.S. spy tech giant co-founded by the billionaire and J.D. Vance mentor, Peter Thiel. It's been called the world's scariest and most important company, and its tech has been used by everyone from ICE to the Israel Defense Forces. This weekend, its official account posted like a 22-point manifesto on X. Start of the post said, because we keep getting asked, but no one really knows who's asking. The key points included implying that some cultures are inferior to others. Some cultures have produced vital advances. Others remain dysfunctional and regressive, heaping praise on the U.S. for its role in global peace and progressive values, while saying that America should reinstate the military draft, and saying that free and democratic societies need hard power over soft power and moral appeal. Also said that Silicon Valley had an obligation to help out in things like national defense and violent crimes, and the future is AI war, because if we don't build the killer robots, our enemies will build them.
Yeah, I love that now they're using the whole, basically the Russia back when we were doing the nuclear race, and now it's, you know, China's going to do these robots, and, you know, you're a communist if you don't want to, or a terrorist. And no, they're giving us a reason, right? They're giving us that reason why they need to be in control. But not just in control, like they literally wrote a manifesto like Bond villains. Where are we?
Points included saying multiple times we need to be nicer to public figures and billionaires. So this means not.
Please don't hurt our feelings and tell us we're bad men, even though we know we're bad men. And as they terrorize us with all these tales of China, right? Now it's China. What's interesting is if you look at China's the example of digital ID, which is what they want to do. But if you actually see, this is where it's going.
Appears to be constructing the ultimate tool of social control. A comprehensive credit score system that will make your head spin. That's what the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, wrote on October 5th, 2015. This newly emerging, soon-to-be all-encompassing surveillance network, it said, would give everyone in China a score between 350 and 950.
What did the bankers say? And it would give us a way to enforce.
But unlike, say, American credit scores, these would punish everything from jaywalking to government criticism. Even more disturbingly, you could be responsible for the actions of your friends and family. The rest of the article mainly focused on the United States. The ACLU, after all, is an American nonprofit. It lobbies for things like free speech, privacy, and...
Right, and in 2015 they objected, but in 2026 we are welcoming it in.
Tens of thousands have become invisible, not because they broke the law, but because an algorithm said they did. This is the dark side of China's social credit system, a digital prison built without walls. For years, state media praised it as a system of trust, a way to reward honesty and discipline. In reality, it's a scoring machine that tracks your every move, your spending, your friends, your posts, even your thoughts. One mistake, one overdue payment, one careless comment, and your digital score drops. And when it drops, life itself begins to shut down. No travel, no housing, no bank access. Your phone payment apps lock. Your ID flashes red. Your name appears on the national blacklist. At first, people believed it only targeted criminals. But when China's economy began to crumble, the net widened. Suddenly, anyone in debt, anyone late on taxes, anyone who dared to speak.
Anyone in debt. You know how many Americans are in debt? Wouldn't that be a great way to be the final nail on the coffin? They're keeping us poor on purpose. Happy 4th of July, folks.
It has become a real big issue here in the United States. In fact, a recent study has shown that 1 in 4 Americans believe that they will not be able to retire.
Nobody warned us that we'd be in our 50s and still trying to figure out retirement. If that hit you like it hit me, this message is for you. I'm 54 years old. I'm still having to work a job full time because retirement did not pan out the way I thought it would. I thought it would just magically appear, but guess what? It doesn't. You have to prepare, and that's where I messed up. And I know so many.
Wherever I had set a tiny bit aside, because that's what moms do. And then I took a $10,000 pay cut to protect my mental health because I was drowning. And somehow $10,000 in debt. Tell me how we can work this hard for decades, do everything we were told to do, and still end up near retirement with nothing waiting for us. And for a minute, I was embarrassed. What if people think I failed? What if they think I should have planned better? What if I'm too old to start something new?
I'll be 53 years old this year, and full transparency, like no retirement. Like I've done a terrible job with that. A lot of that is, raised.
Notice that all these people are blaming themselves, and I blame myself as well. As Americans, we blame ourselves for everything. When do we blame the government, folks, huh? When is it ever their fault? They run everything. Our tax dollars go to them. Why is it that in America we are so ready to blame ourselves, to punish our neighbors instead of who is actually responsible? That is why this nation is crumbling. That is why everyone is miserable. And that is why we are very close to collapse.
Positions, imprisoned, tortured, and executed publicly. Now, here's the part people miss. Rome did not do that at the height of its confidence. Rome did that while the empire was already destabilizing. Economic problems, political instability, leadership crisis. See, the cruelty was proof that the empire was scared. Rome fell less than 200 years later. Now, we're going to jump forward. The British Empire controlled roughly a quarter of the planet at its peak. And what happened during its decline? Did Britain lose its grip? No. It squeezed harder. In India, British troops opened fire on unarmed Indian civilians, trapped in an enclosed area. Hundreds were killed. Then Kenya in the 1950s.
So, if we take UK as an example, and people are already getting tickets from the flock cameras, right? So that's starting. Next, it'll be things on social media and with what we have going on with the Voting Act. Do you understand? And that's why I'm going back and forth. We are on the verge of collapse, and our government is doing everything in the playbook because they are not smart people. They have watched this from afar, and they're just trying to, reconstrue it in their own way. But that's why the SAVE Act is a big deal, folks. That's one of their last ways of tightening that noose.
Or Save America Act. The House has already passed 2 versions of the bill, and the Senate has been deliberating over its own for weeks. Well, now President Trump says it needs to be their only priority, that he won't sign anything else into law until this law passes. That may mean nothing else on Capitol Hill gets done, with some worried about the future of funding for the Department of Homeland Security. President Donald Trump growing more impatient by the day, issuing a new ultimatum to lawmakers on Capitol.
Oh, he's pissed. He's a bully. That's all he does. That's why things are going badly for him. You can only bully so much before people just say, fuck you, hit me. He even wouldn't sign the Affordability Act, which for housing, and let's just be honest, that had, it was never going to go forward, but everybody felt good about it, and the American people felt good about it. They do not. The American people are not stupid. So, again, we're reaching 250 years, folks. Ever since I've turned 40 each year, instead of making a wish, I sort of kind of adjust to where I am. I'm very, very aware of who I am as a human being. And you would think that America, on its 250th birthday, that it would be very, very concerned with the status of things, and that it would actually be fighting back. America, we are weak, we are complicit, we are afraid of being uncomfortable. We actually could do more and deal with the politicians better, but Americans won't do that. They just simply will not. So on this 4th of July, folks, while you set off fireworks and you get drunk, and maybe you can't even do that anymore because God knows people can't afford it, realize what this country is and what it's given you. Because as of this year, what it's given me is crippling anxiety and fear, along with a huge amount of shame of being an American. Everyone needs to make some decisions because it's crumbling very, very quickly. Godspeed, folks. Smoke if you got 'em, and drop a black heart if you made it this far. Bye-bye.